Welcome back, everybody. This is lesson 12 of developing a dynamic website from start to finish. As mentioned in the last video, we're going to continue kind of tidying up the site. We tidied up the code a little bit, made the index page a little more presentable as far as code-wise, put a lot of things in setup, and created functions that helped as well tidy up the index page. Now we're going to do a little bit of CSS to make our page look a little more presentable. So let's first open up our CSS, and this styles.css, we're going to kind of use this as our sandbox, just like we did with the functions. This is kind of be where we kind of put everything until we're ready to divide it up, and I've mentioned that before. But looking at the design, you know, it's well put together, I guess, but it's pretty hideous. And I'd like to undo that if we could a little bit. So the first thing I want to do is take a look at the header. We're going to kind of go from top to bottom. And we created this temp block class, I believe, to kind of give everything this padded box shape here so we could clearly define where the areas are. And we're gonna not do that anymore. So let's take away the temp block here on the header, save and upload, and see what happens. There we go. We go back to normal Times New Roman and all that jazz. So first thing we can do, if we go over to our styles, CSS, here I'm going to close these from the last video. Temp block had the font family in it. Let's go ahead and for now, let's highlight this, click, and drag it into the body. And we'll go ahead and make that the default font is Arial or Helvetica if you're on a Mac, and save and upload that. And if we go back to our site and refresh, there. So now we've maintained the same font type. We've just gotten rid of the ugly kind of cyan boxes here. Now let's take a little time and focus on the navigation here. If we go to our index, let's remove temp block, save and upload, and let's see what we're left with. Pretty much the same thing, just no box. So back to our CSS, if we go back to our index, let's go ahead and open up the template file for nav main. Alright, and we've made these just links. Now if you've been in the other series, you'll probably know what we're going to do next. We're going to turn this into an unordered list, actually. We want to create a UL tag for unordered list, and then we'll create a list item. And since we've got 4 links, let's just go ahead and speed things up, copy and paste this 4 times. And then we'll just kind of highlight this, each one of these links, and drop them in the middle. Leave out the dashes. We're going to get rid of those. And then go ahead and get rid of those dashes or hyphens or whatever you'd like to call them. And save and upload. And if we refresh, we're going to have a noticeable difference. This is going to be a list now. Now, of course, this is not what we want it to look like. We're going to strip this list down and turn it into a nice looking navigation. So flip back to Dreamweaver, go to our styles.css, and for nav main, we're going to go ahead and give ourselves a little space, and let's go ahead and type in nav underscore main and UL because we want to affect the unordered list tag. And we can go ahead and speed some things up here because we're going to make a couple of these rules. So copy this and paste it a couple of times. On this second one, add an li because we want to affect the list item. On the third one, we want to do li and then a because we want to affect the link tag that's within the li tag. And then the very last one, we want to do an li, a, and then colon hover because we want to affect the hover state of the link. Now, if any of this CSS is unfamiliar to you, we have videos both for kind of an intro to HTML and CSS, plus if you followed us along from the original series, this should all be familiar to you. The first thing I want to do is something I do normally just by default, and I want to give 0 pixels all the way around for margin, and I'm going to copy this and paste it again and change this to padding. So we've pretty much stripped the whole box model out of this. We've taken all the padding and margin off of the UL tag that's generally there. So if I were to save this and upload and refresh, we're going to notice some changes. These are going to back up a little bit. There you go. So we've gotten rid of some of that buffer that's automatically there when you make a list. I want to go ahead and copy this and paste it down here in our li tag too. I'd like to start from scratch with that as well. Next thing I want to do is for the list style, none. Save and upload. And this should get rid of our bullets when we refresh. Sure does. So now the next thing we need to do is we're going to say display, and right now these are block items, as in they kind of stack. We want to do inline block. Save and upload that. Look at our page, and this should set them next to each other. Sure does. So now we're back to where we kind of started, minus the dashes, and you might think we're doing a little overkill here with all these things. We already had this, but we're going to be able to do a couple of extra things that we weren't before. So first thing I'd like to do is let's go ahead and remove the underline from the link. So in the nav underscore main ULLIA rule, we're going to do text decoration none. Save and upload, and that's going to take out the kind of default underline that links have. So there, that's gone. Now the next thing I'm going to do is, this is kind of a trick that we play on with the HTML and the CSS, and we're going to make the display block for the link. And what that's going to allow us to do is kind of have a blocky look to it, give it a buttony look without it being stacked on top of each other, because we're killing that right here. And let's go ahead and let's add some padding to the link, not the list item, but the link itself. And let's do 5 pixels on the top and bottom, and 3 pixels on the right and left. And if you remember from our CSS lessons, if you only define 2, it's gonna say 5 on top and bottom, 3 on right and left. So let's save and upload. Go ahead and refresh. And we've given ourselves a little bit of buffer. And that's not really going to shine or do anything spectacular until we do something to the hover state. Now that we have that padding in there and it's a block element, we can go ahead and change the background color. So let's say background color, and just off the top of my head, let's just make it kind of a light gray. Let's do ED, ED, ED. Save and upload, refresh, and there you go. Now we have these kind of buttony looking links at the top here. I'd like to make them a little bigger, so let's actually increase the right and left to maybe 15 and save and upload, refresh, and there you go. So now we've created a nice simple rollover for our navigation. We could fancy it up a little more, and we might do that later, but for now it at least gives us just a little bit more of a clean look, a little more minimalistic without this awful cyan, which we're going to get rid of in the this area here, the content area. So with the content area, we might be able to just get away with going ahead and getting rid of temp block. So let's do that, save and upload the index page, refresh, and sure enough. Now we've got some spacing here that we can do without, and we'll get to that. Let's just go ahead and work on our footer here really quick and just get rid of temp block in the footer, save and upload, and here you go. So the site is actually quite a bit more plain than it was before, but it's not as awful looking to the eye. We can start doing a little more specific styling now. So let's see, let's go ahead, and one of the things I know already is that we have a rule for nav main that added some padding that we don't need anymore. So let's go to our styles here and see this nav main padding 20 pixels. Let's go ahead and just copy this margin and padding here. It kind of zeroes it out. Highlight this and paste over top of it to kind of remove it. Save and upload. And if we refresh, boom. Now we've got things kind of pushed up a little more, a little more presentable. However, I don't like that this is shoved all the way over to the side. So let's just do a little bit of margin on the left here, and let's try 20 pixels and see where that puts us. So if you remember, just a refresher, when you've got these four values, this is top, right, bottom, left. So 20 pixels on the left bumps that out. We'll keep that there for now. And let's see, our heading, or our header, looks good. Temp block, we can go ahead and just remove that from our style sheet to kind of tidy things up. And let's just really come in here and clean things up a bit. Sometimes I like grouping certain properties in the CSS. That's up to you on how you do that. Let's see. Alright, so content area. Let's see, take a look here. That's where we're getting our extra padding on the top here. So let's go ahead and kill this padding on the top. of our content area. And save and upload. There. Now things are looking a little more uniform. Still plain, still really basic, yet I think it's a little more attractive than the cyan boxes. Let's do a little bit of work on our footer. Let's go ahead and change the font size to, let's say, 10 pixels, 11 pixels. Save and upload. Refresh. There you go. It might be, we'll keep it there. By default, let's go ahead just for now, and in the content area, do font size here and make that 12 pixels, which is more of a general size. There we go. Now we have a little bit of contrast between the content of the page and the main navigation, which was something that was kind of bugging me. And lastly, let's go ahead and put a border on top of the footer. So border dash top 1 pixel. We'll make it solid. We'll make it a light gray. Do df df df. Control S. If you haven't noticed, I know my gray is pretty well. You get to the point where you start kind of remembering these color codes and things. So there we have a little bit of separation there. We might even, oh no, let's put a border on our navigation, and we will put it, we'll give the border to the div itself. So border top 1 pixel solid, and we'll keep it the same, df df df, and then we can simply copy this and paste it again, change top to bottom, and save and upload, refresh, and there you go. There's our navigation. Things are starting to look a little more easy on the eyes. Now this whole layout is kind of stretched all the way across, and maybe the last thing we can do before moving back into some, PHP and such, because I don't want to spend too much time on styling. But let's go ahead, go back to our index. Those of you familiar with CSS and HTML will understand what we're going to do here, but we're going to create a div. We're going to give it a class. We're going to call it wrap, and I'm going to call it wrap overall because it's going to wrap over the entire page. Drag the end of this div down here, give some space for some formatting, kind of highlight this and tab it out. We'll save, and then what we need to do is go back into our styles. We need to create a rule for this wrap overall. And all we're going to do is we're going to give this a width. And we're going to give it a width that will fit within a 1024 pixel screen, which at the very minimum would be an old CRT TV looking monitor. So let's just make it 960. It's kind of small, but it's a pretty common width. We're going to save that. Now the only thing we need to do, because if I save and upload this and we refresh it, it's gonna condense this to 960, which will help actually make our page a little bigger and make it feel like it's got more content. It's less stretched out. However, everything's going to be forced over to the left, and we don't want that. What we want to do is center it. And the only other thing we need to do is our margins, which is margin. We're going to do 0 pixels on the top and bottom, and auto on the right and left, which will end up actually centering this div within the middle of the page. So there we go. This is looking way better. And we'll kind of leave the CSS alone for a while here, so we can get back into the more programming end. But hopefully this is a bit easier on the eyes. And what's neat about it is we did it all without using Photoshop, without using any graphics. So load time is great. We're not waiting on anything. That's not to say that putting graphics in here wouldn't be a good idea. I'm just saying, you know, look what could be done. I mean, even as a simple site, this is presentable. This is something you could show somebody. Minimalism at its finest, I guess. So that concludes this part of the lesson. What we're going to do in the next lesson is, I believe we're going to kind of start working on our control panel, which is well, we're gonna call it our admin panel to not be confused with the C panel for your hosting. So we'll call it an admin panel, and what it's going to do is it's going to be where you can go, or your client can go, and manipulate the content of the website, basically finishing off the whole idea of the CMS. It's kind of the last piece of the puzzle for a full CMS. As I said before, there's still a lot to do to make the CMS you know, presentable and robust and expandable, scalable, things like that. But it's pretty much the last building block to make it a legitimate CMS, because you've got to be able to allow the client and or yourself or whoever is going to use the website to go in and manipulate the content in a way other than us developers would. So thanks, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.